Greetings, scholars. Today we're going to talk about how to write a draft letter, how to ask for feedback, and how to be the peer review reader that you want to have in your life. All writers need to be good readers, and you need to find good readers to have in your life. So to start, be as good of a peer reviewer as you hope to have, because it will also help you in being able to self-edit, to revise your own work. Once you've written a piece of writing, you are invested. It is often hard to see flaws or accept criticism. You're vulnerable because you're too close to it. And we're going to talk about how to put on your editing face and be ready for a reader to critique your piece. And also what advice to take and what advice to maybe ignore. Good readers are hard to find. Do not waste your opportunity for useful feedback. Make sure that you're ready. For one, do you want criticism to improve the work, or do you want a pep talk? There's nothing wrong with a pep talk, but it is a very different thing. Do not have someone actually read your work if you do not want more work in revising that thing afterwards. Reading invites more work. If you need a pep talk, do not attach your writing to it. Just say, I have finished chapter 4, and your editor will go, congratulations, you're on time and schedule, and you're great. And that is the right thing for the moment when you're not willing to go back and start investing more time in chapter 4. In fact, the minute you get done with a draft, often it is time to throw your arms up in celebration and not have anyone look at it until you've had a little bit of a breather. It is also important that by the time someone sees your work for peer review, that you have made it as good as you can get it. Nobody really sees your rough draft. The rough draft that your reader first reads is many iterations of revised between what you saw as a rough draft and what actually sees the light of day of another human being. Be honest with yourself and your reader for what you want out of a reading. And also make sure that there's the time to work after feedback. So remember that you need time for the reader to read, plus you need time to work on any changes that might need to happen. So when you're ready to invest in revision and you're ready to want the work itself to be better, then you're ready. Some feedback is better than others. And while bad feedback can still be worked with, the first thing you want to strive to be is not that kind of reader. The worst kind of feedback I can think of is the, everything looks great. That's amazing. You're so smart. That's a pep talk. And when I need one of those, I'm not going to ask you to read the draft because you can't fix anything. You can't make it better without some constructive criticism of some sort. Personal judgment is the next category of bad feedback, where the reader doesn't separate the work from the writer. And that we can see with second person, right? Your problem here is you need to fix this. You don't have a problem. Your draft probably has many problems, but it is a thing and you are a person. Even if you get second person, you did this and you need to fix this and your problem here is, you can separate that you don't have the problems, but boy, does this draft has problems. Let's both stand shoulder to shoulder and fix it together. Make sure that you are not internalizing that personalizing of the feedback. The other kind of bad feedback is general, vague statements. Almost as bad as nothing's wrong, it's all perfect, is not my cup of tea, major revisions are needed, you lost me, boring. That's still better than everything's amazing, simply because if you can get some hint as to the location where you lost them, where it got boring, where they threw their hands up and said major revisions needed, then all of a sudden you at least have a pinpoint place in the writing that you can start working from. But if you cannot pinpoint the issue, then that's not helpful. Useful criticism talks about the work, not the person. It is also very specific, sort of geographically within the paper, where and what exactly you're talking about. You can identify where is the easiest because you can just click on the word, phrase, paragraph, sentence, whatever it is, and start giving your feedback at exactly that spot, which is why we use margin comment when we are doing peer reviews in my courses. If you can identify why this thing is a problem, why these issues are emerging for you as a reader, great. If you can think up some strategies or ideas or concrete solutions to fix the problem, even better. But it leans back into bad feedback again if you expect that they have to take your suggestions. You are a peer reviewer. You are maybe even the editor. You are not the writer. So if you help get ideas flowing, but then don't feel entitled to your suggestions being the only useful ones, then we're back to being useful again. Another very useful part of a good reader is finding the strengths and pointing them out. You're amazing. This is amazing. As you're reading a section or a paragraph that was really strong or you really enjoyed as a reader, point those out because you don't want them to end up on the cutting room floor when revisions are being made. All right, draft letter. What do you write in a request for someone to read your draft? You start by thanking them for their time. Then you ask for what you are asking for. You are giving them permission to be critical, to find things that are wrong. If you know of any problems that you can identify that you were not able to fix, then that is permission to seek that thing out, target that, help me fix it. Communicate your hopes to say, I feel like this is almost done. I need help with dialogue in this section. Okay, then that is telling me to limit most of my critique to the dialogue in this particular section. If you say, I know it has these problems, but I also know that there are problems that I maybe haven't even noticed. Could you point out anything else you see as a reader or anything else you see as a specialist in this area? Whatever it is, communicate your hopes so that you can get the best out of your reader and give them permission to dig into the critiques where you need them. An honest account of your strengths and the weaknesses that you know of. Put everyone on the same page before starting out. Once you get the feedback, you're ready to invest more work. Be willing to change everything, but please save the original. Save every single iteration of the drafting process. That way you can be as brave as you want with cutting things. And then if you miss some of those things that you cut when you do a reread, you can just go back to a previous version and stick them back in. Copy them back in. Back up everything often. This is part of that work smart, not hard, because you don't want to lose your work. And every iteration of revision is an important step of your labor into the finished piece. All right, the biggest secret of the work smart, not hard system. Always work big to small. We revise before we edit. Arranging the big chunks of ideas into the correct order is the first step. Then moving to the paragraph level, this is where those questions about reverse outlining can help with arrangement. Look at things in big chunks of ideas and then big chunks of paragraphs. That's when you're looking at the content and how you're communicating it. Then, once you like the arrangement, that's when you can move to sentence level revisions, and then to word choices, phrasing, transitions, these sorts of line by line, smaller editing techniques. Don't do those first. And the reason you don't do those first is part of the work smart, not hard, because if you spend an extra 30 seconds deciding on the perfect verb for a sentence that in the grand arrangement doesn't need to be there, you will be less likely to cut that sentence because it's become more precious to you because you've spent more of your time on it. So if you think of all sentences as expendable because you might cut that entire paragraph anyway, then you will get all of your ideas down and you will get them arranged in the way that you want them. And then you will start to polish up the language and the verb choice and the phrasing and the transitions. Good revising tends to shrink the total word count of a draft. Your earlier drafts are longer, and then you start to tighten up the ideas and the organization, which means you tend to not repeat yourself and bounce around as much. And then you start to tighten up the paragraphs to be more organized, where you have introducing your point, adding your source info and then analyzing that source info, boom, next. And they tend to shrink when they get better. And then you go in on that word level editing and they shrink even more. When you work from big to small and are not afraid of cutting to make something more focused, is the very definition of working smart in the writing process.